Have you ever wondered why people sometimes act in ways that make no sense to you? Maybe a colleague at work snapped at you over something small. Or perhaps a close friend pulled away without any clear reason. Maybe you found yourself regretting something you said, thinking later, "Why did I react that way?" These moments leave us confused, frustrated, and sometimes even hurt. We spend hours overthinking them, trying to understand what others really meant or why we can't seem to control our own reactions. The truth is, every one of us has been there. Because understanding human behavior is not always simple. And without that understanding, we often struggle in relationships, at work, and even in how we see ourselves. But imagine what life would look like if you had the ability to read people better, to understand not only what they are doing but also why. Imagine having the emotional clarity to manage your own reactions, the confidence to connect with others on a deeper level, and the skills to handle conflict, build trust, and influence positively without manipulation. That is exactly what this audiobook is about. In Psychology of Human Behavior and Social Intelligence Mastery, we will dive deep into the fascinating world of why people think, feel, and act the way they do. And more importantly, you will discover how this knowledge can completely transform the way you live, the way you relate to others, and the way you see yourself. This is not a book of heavy theories or complicated psychological terms. Instead, every chapter is designed to give you practical, easy-to-apply insights that will guide you step by step toward greater self-awareness, stronger emotional intelligence, and sharper social skills. We will start by uncovering the core reasons behind human behavior, why we do what we do. You'll learn how the architecture of the mind works, how our needs and motivations drive our daily choices, and how emotions act as powerful compasses pointing us toward what matters most. From there, we will explore the influence of personality differences, the hidden traps of cognitive biases, and the often overlooked forces of social dynamics and group behavior. You'll gain tools to understand yourself better, but also to see others with clarity and empathy. Then we will shift into building the skills of social intelligence. These are the skills that make people unforgettable leaders, trusted friends, and inspiring partners. Finally, we'll bring it all together into a practical roadmap for self-growth. So you won't just understand human psychology in theory, but you'll be able to live it, breathe it, and master it in real life. By the end of this audiobook, you will not only understand the psychology of human behavior, but also develop the mastery of social intelligence. And that mastery will help you build stronger relationships, succeed in your career, handle challenges with grace, and grow into the best version of yourself. So, if you've ever felt misunderstood, if you've ever struggled to connect with people, if you've ever wished you could control your emotions better or influence others without force, this audiobook was created for you. Because the truth is this: success in life is not just about what you know or how hard you work. It's about how well you understand yourself and how skillfully you relate to others. That is the real foundation of personal growth, meaningful relationships, and lasting influence. As you listen, I encourage you to reflect on your own life. Think about the situations where these insights apply to you. Try out the strategies, test them in your conversations, and notice the changes. Little by little, you'll see yourself becoming more self-aware, more confident, and more socially intelligent. So, let's begin this journey together. You are about to gain one of the most valuable forms of knowledge there is: the mastery of human behavior and social intelligence. And once you master that, everything else in life becomes easier. Before we dive in, we've noticed that most people who listen to our audiobooks do not subscribe to our channel. So do me and yourself a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who's ready to grow, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the valuable insights that will help you stay unstoppable. Chapter 1: Why We Do What We Do. Have you ever stopped in the middle of your day and asked yourself, "Why did I just do that?" Maybe you raised your voice in frustration, even though you promised yourself you'd stay calm. Maybe you avoided an opportunity because fear held you back. Or perhaps you kept scrolling through your phone even when you had more important things to do. If you've ever wondered why you do the things you do, why people sometimes behave in ways that don't even make sense to themselves, you're not alone. Understanding behavior is one of the oldest and most fascinating questions in human history. The truth is, every single thing we do, big or small, conscious or unconscious, has a reason. And while it may not always be obvious, there is always a hidden driver behind every action. The invisible forces behind behavior. Psychologists tell us that human behavior is rarely random. Instead, it's shaped by a combination of three forces. Biology, our brain chemistry, hormones, and nervous system responses. Experience, the lessons we've learned from childhood, culture, and personal life events. Context, the social or environmental situation we find ourselves in at any moment. Think about it. If someone snaps at you in traffic, it might not be about you at all. Maybe they are late for an important meeting. Maybe they've had a tough day. Their reaction is the result of stress, past experience, and the immediate pressure of the moment. In his book Thinking, Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman explains that our brain operates in two modes. System 1, which is fast, automatic, and emotional, and System 2, which is slow, deliberate, and logical. Much of our daily behavior comes from System 1. We react instantly without deep thought. That's why we often say things like, "I don't know why I did that, it just happened." Imagine you're in a meeting and your manager asks for volunteers for a new project. You want to raise your hand, but something holds you back. Instead, you stay quiet, even though deep inside you know the project could have been a great opportunity. Why did you act that way? Perhaps your past experiences taught you that speaking up sometimes leads to criticism. Maybe you feared judgment from others in the room. Or perhaps your brain instantly calculated that staying safe was more comfortable than taking a risk. That simple moment, deciding not to raise your hand, was not random. It was the product of memory, fear, motivation, and instant mental shortcuts. Now let's flip it around. Suppose a close friend suddenly stops replying to your messages. You feel hurt, and you wonder, did I do something wrong? But when you finally talk to them, you discover they were struggling with stress at work or dealing with personal challenges they didn't know how to share. Their silence wasn't about you. It was about their own inner struggles. Again, the behavior looked confusing from the outside, but it made sense once you saw the hidden reason. We are all driven by needs. Another key to understanding why we do what we do is this. Human beings are always trying to meet their needs. Psychologist Abraham Maslow explained this in his famous hierarchy of needs. At the base are survival needs: food, water, shelter. Next comes safety, then love and belonging, esteem, and finally self-actualization, the drive to grow and fulfill our potential. So, when someone works long hours, maybe it's not just ambition, it's the need for financial security. When someone spends hours on social media, maybe it's not laziness, it's the deep need for connection and belonging. When we begin to look at behavior through the lens of needs, even confusing actions begin to make sense. The role of emotions. But needs alone don't explain everything. Emotions play a massive role in our behavior. Think about how differently you act when you're happy versus when you're angry or anxious. A person in love may act boldly, doing things they'd normally fear. A person in grief may withdraw, avoiding things they once enjoyed. Emotions are not just feelings, they are signals that guide our behavior. They tell us when something matters, when something is at risk, and when we need to pay attention. The hidden power of beliefs. Our beliefs, what we think is true about ourselves and the world, also guide our actions. If you believe you're capable, you'll take risks and embrace challenges. But if you believe you're not good enough, you'll hesitate, even when opportunity knocks. That's why two people in the exact same situation can behave completely differently. It's not the situation itself, but the meaning they give to it. Why this matters? So, why should you care about all of this? Because once you understand that behavior always has a reason, you gain two incredible powers. Self-awareness. Instead of being controlled by your impulses, you can pause and ask, what's really driving me right now? Empathy. Instead of judging others harshly, you can step back and think, what might be behind their behavior? These two powers alone, self-awareness and empathy, can transform your relationships, your work, and your personal growth. Key takeaways for you. Human behavior is never random. It's shaped by biology, experience, and context. Most of our actions are driven by hidden needs and emotions. Our beliefs and past experiences shape the way we respond to situations. Understanding why we do what we do gives us self-awareness and empathy. As you go about your day, practice this simple habit. Whenever you notice a reaction in yourself or someone else, pause and ask, what might really be driving this behavior? You'll be surprised at how much clarity this gives you, and how much compassion it creates for others. Chapter 2. The Architecture of the Human Mind. Have you ever found yourself saying, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyway? Or maybe you promised yourself to stay calm in a tough conversation, but when the moment came, your emotions took over, and you reacted in a way you later regretted. These moments make us wonder, who is really in control, me or my mind? The truth is, the human mind is not one single, unified system. It is more like a complex building with different rooms, each serving its own purpose. Some rooms are filled with logic and planning, while others are fueled by emotion, instinct, and survival. To understand human behavior, we need to step inside this building and explore how these rooms interact. Psychologists often describe the mind as having two main systems. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, explains this in his best-selling book Thinking, Fast and Slow. He calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional, and instinctive. It's the part of your mind that makes quick judgments without much thought. For example, if someone throws a ball at you, you don't stand there calculating angles. You duck instantly. If you see a person frown at you, you immediately sense tension. That's System 1 at work. System 2, on the other hand, is slow, deliberate, and logical. It's the part of your mind that you use when solving a math problem, making a tough decision, or planning your future. It takes effort and energy. Kahneman writes, System 1 runs automatically and quickly with little or no effort. System 2 allocates attention to effortful mental activities. In other words, we need both systems. System 1 keeps us alive in emergencies and helps us function in everyday life. System 2 helps us make rational decisions and long-term plans. Now, let's bring this down to something more relatable. Imagine you're walking into a bakery. The smell of fresh bread hits you, and suddenly you feel hungry, even if you just ate lunch. That's System 1 triggering your senses and emotions. But then, you remind yourself of your health goals or your budget. That's System 2 stepping in, weighing the consequences, and helping you decide whether to buy that extra loaf. Here's another example. You meet someone new. Within seconds, you form an impression. Maybe they seem trustworthy, or maybe something about them feels off. That's your System 1 making a snap judgment. But later, you might reflect, consider their actions, and realize your first impression was wrong. That's System 2 correcting the initial instinct. This constant dance between the fast, emotional system and the slow, rational system shapes much of our daily lives. But there's more. The mind also has deeper layers. Think of it as 3 floors in the building. The ground floor, the survival mind. This is the part of your brain responsible for basic instincts, fight, flight, or freeze. When you're in danger, this part takes over. For example, if a car suddenly swerves toward you, your survival mind reacts before you even think. The middle floor, the emotional mind. This is where feelings live. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, love. All of these emotions are processed here. They are powerful drivers of human behavior because they influence our choices even when we don't realize it. The top floor, the thinking mind. This is the rational, reflective part. It helps us solve problems, plan for the future, and control impulses. It's what makes humans capable of learning, growing, and creating. When all 3 floors work together in harmony, we make wise decisions. But often one floor tries to dominate. Sometimes emotions hijack us, and we react without thinking. Other times, survival instincts cause us to overreact to small threats. And sometimes we overthink with logic and ignore our emotions, leading to cold or disconnected choices. Let's take a workplace example. Imagine your boss criticizes your work. Instantly, your survival mind feels threatened, and your emotional mind reacts with anger or embarrassment. If you reply harshly in that moment, it's a System 1 reaction. But if you pause, take a deep breath, and let your thinking mind, System 2, process the situation, you can respond more constructively, maybe by asking for feedback on how to improve. Understanding the architecture of the mind doesn't mean you'll never react emotionally again, but it gives you awareness. And awareness creates power. Once you know how these systems and floors of the mind interact, you can pause before reacting and choose responses that align with your goals and values. Another important aspect of the mind's architecture is habits. Much of what we do every day is not conscious decision-making. It's automatic routines stored in our brain. From brushing your teeth to checking your phone, habits run in the background. Neuroscientists explain that habits form when behaviors are repeated often enough that they shift from the thinking mind to the automatic system. That's why breaking a bad habit or building a good one requires conscious effort, because you're rewiring pathways in your brain. The good news is this: the brain is flexible. Psychologists call this neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to reorganize itself by forming new connections. This means we are not stuck with the way we are. With practice, reflection, and intentional effort, we can reshape our thoughts, our behaviors, and even our emotional patterns. So, what does this all mean for you? It means that your mind is not your enemy. It is a powerful tool. But like any tool, it must be understood and used wisely. If you let System 1 run unchecked, you'll live by impulse. If you rely only on System 2, you may miss the wisdom of intuition. If you ignore your emotions, you'll feel disconnected. If you give emotions too much power, you may regret impulsive choices. Balance is the key. Key takeaways for you. The human mind has two main systems. System 1, fast, emotional, instinctive. System 2, slow, rational, deliberate. The mind can be imagined as three floors. Survival mind, instincts. Emotional mind, feelings. Thinking mind, logic and planning. Much of daily life is driven by habits, but habits can be changed through awareness and practice. The brain is adaptable through neuroplasticity, meaning personal growth is always possible. If this chapter opened your eyes to how your mind truly works, imagine the transformation waiting in the chapters ahead. But before we continue, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did the idea of System 1 and System 2 resonate with you? Have you noticed moments where your emotions took over before your logic could catch up? Take a moment to share in the comments. I'll be reading them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapters of this audiobook. By staying connected, you're not just listening, you're actively joining a journey of self-growth and social intelligence mastery. Now, let's move forward into the next chapter, where we explore the core human needs and motivations that drive every action we take. Chapter 3: Core Human Needs and Motivation. Have you ever wondered why, no matter where you go in the world, people seem to want the same things at the deepest level? It doesn't matter the culture, the background, or the language. There are invisible strings that pull us all in the same direction. Think about it. Why does a child cry when they're left alone? Why does a young adult work long hours, chasing success? Why does an elderly person long for companionship and respect? Behind all of these questions is one answer: human needs. At the core of every action we take, whether big or small, lies a need we are trying to satisfy. Sometimes we are aware of it, other times we're not. And yet, these needs shape our motivation, our decisions, and even our happiness. The famous psychologist Abraham Maslow created what we now know as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He suggested that human beings are motivated by levels of needs, starting from the most basic survival needs like food and safety, all the way up to higher needs like love, purpose, and self-fulfillment. Let's make this simple. Imagine a pyramid. At the bottom are the basics: food, water, shelter. If these are not met, nothing else matters. Once we have those, we want safety, stability, health, security. Then comes belonging, relationships, family, community. After that, esteem. We crave respect, recognition, and confidence. And at the top sits self-actualization, the desire to grow, to become the best version of ourselves. Now let's bring this to life with everyday examples. Picture a person who hasn't eaten all day. Do you think they care about winning an award or being admired? Not at all. Their focus is on food. On the other hand, think about someone who is financially stable but feels lonely. They may not be motivated by money anymore. They're motivated by the search for connection. Or picture a highly successful professional who already has wealth and status. They might begin asking themselves, what is the meaning of my life? How do I leave a legacy? That's self-actualization. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, who survived unthinkable hardship, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. This shows us something powerful. Motivation is not only about physical needs, but also about deeper psychological and spiritual needs. When we find meaning and purpose, we can overcome almost anything." Now, here's the interesting part. Motivation comes in two forms: extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation is when we act for external rewards, money, recognition, approval. Intrinsic motivation is when we act because it feels fulfilling, because it gives us joy, purpose, or growth. Both are important, but intrinsic motivation is what keeps us going when the external rewards fade. For example, someone might work hard for a paycheck at first. That's extrinsic. But the people who truly thrive are often those who also find joy or purpose in their work. That's intrinsic. If you exercise only because you want to look good for others, your motivation might fade. But if you exercise because you love how strong and healthy it makes you feel, that motivation lasts. So let me ask you, what drives you? Are your daily actions fueled by external approval, or do they connect to something deeper inside you? Understanding your needs and what truly motivates you is the first step toward designing a life that feels satisfying instead of empty. Here's another way to see this. Think of motivation as a fire. Your needs are the fuel. If you are low on basic needs like sleep or security, the fire struggles to burn. But when your deeper needs for love, respect, and meaning are fed, the fire grows stronger and brighter. That's why some people seem unstoppable. They've found the right fuel for their fire. But here's the challenge. Sometimes we chase the wrong need, or we confuse one need for another. A person who craves love and belonging might try to replace it with money or status. They may succeed in wealth, but still feel empty inside. Another person may crave respect, but silence themselves in relationships to keep the peace. Over time, resentment builds. This is why self-awareness, knowing your real needs, is so critical. Let me pause and speak directly to you here. I want you to take a moment after this chapter and reflect. What are the top 3 needs driving your life right now? Are you focused on security, love, respect, or purpose? And more importantly, are you meeting them in healthy ways? Because when our needs go unmet, we feel restless, frustrated, even anxious. But when we align our goals with our true needs, we feel energized, motivated, and alive. The beauty of understanding human needs is that it not only helps us understand ourselves, it also helps us understand others. When a friend snaps at you, instead of assuming they're rude, ask yourself, what need might they be missing right now? Maybe it's rest, maybe it's respect, maybe it's love. This perspective can transform your relationships because you stop reacting to surface behavior and start understanding the deeper need behind it. So, as we move forward in this audiobook, remember this. Everything people do, good or bad, strong or weak, comes from an attempt to meet a need. Some do it in healthy ways, others in unhealthy ways. But the need itself is always there. Key takeaways for you. Human behavior is driven by universal needs: survival, safety, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. Motivation comes in 2 forms: extrinsic, external rewards, and intrinsic, inner fulfillment. When we understand our true needs, we can direct our energy more effectively and live with greater clarity. Understanding others' needs makes us more empathetic and better at building meaningful connections. A life aligned with your core needs is a life of true motivation and lasting fulfillment. Chapter 4: Emotions, the Compass of Behavior. Have you ever made a decision in the heat of the moment and later thought, "What was I thinking?" Maybe you raised your voice at someone you care about, only to regret it a few minutes later. Or perhaps you bought something expensive you didn't need, simply because you were feeling down and wanted a quick boost. These are not just random slips of judgment. They are powerful reminders that emotions drive human behavior far more than logic does. In fact, emotions are like a compass. They guide us, point us in certain directions, and influence how we think, what we choose, and how we act. The writer Antonio Damasio, in his book Descartes' Error, Emotion, Reason, and the Human Brain, explained this perfectly. He wrote, "We are not thinking machines that feel, we are feeling machines that think." His research showed that when people lose the ability to experience emotions due to brain injury, they also lose the ability to make simple decisions, even when all the facts are right in front of them. So let's explore why emotions are not weaknesses to be controlled, but powerful tools to be understood. The role of emotions in daily life. Think about fear. When you're walking down a dark street and hear footsteps behind you, your body reacts before your mind does. Your heart races, your muscles tighten, your senses sharpen. Fear is telling you, pay attention. Something may be wrong. Now think about joy. You hear laughter from a child, or a loved one surprises you with kindness. Joy lights up your body, it fuels energy, it tells you, "This is good. Do more of this." Every emotion has a message. Anger tells us our boundaries may have been crossed. Sadness signals loss and invites us to slow down and heal. Excitement pushes us toward new possibilities. Even guilt, though uncomfortable, reminds us of our values and helps us correct our mistakes. The problem is, most of us were never taught how to read these emotional signals. Instead, we're told to stop being so emotional or keep your feelings in check. But if we silence emotions completely, we lose the compass that keeps us on track. Why emotions outweigh logic? Here's something fascinating. Neuroscientists have found that emotions can override logic in decision-making. Imagine being offered a new job that pays more, but requires leaving behind your family and friends. Logically, the higher pay looks attractive. But emotionally, the cost of loneliness or disconnection may hold you back. Your emotional brain is constantly asking, will this bring me comfort, safety, love, meaning, or will it bring me pain, danger, and regret? And that voice often wins over cold calculations. This is why marketing, politics, and even leadership lean heavily on emotional appeal. People rarely follow pure logic. They follow how something makes them feel. Just like a parent who works long hours not just for money, but because they feel the emotion of responsibility and love for their children. Or a teenager who might take a risk not because it's wise, but because the emotion of belonging and peer acceptance feels stronger than the fear of consequences. Or someone who might stay in a job they dislike because the comfort of security feels safer than the fear of the unknown. In all these examples, emotions are steering the wheel, even when logic is in the passenger seat. Understanding the emotional compass. To master human behavior and social intelligence, we must learn to read emotions, both in ourselves and in others. Ask yourself these questions when emotions rise. What is this feeling trying to tell me? Is this reaction about the present moment, or is it triggered by a past experience? If I act on this feeling now, will I be proud of my choice later? These small pauses can transform your emotional compass from a wild storm into a trusted guide. Using emotions as strengths. Let's break this down with a few common emotions. Fear. Instead of freezing, ask, what is this fear warning me about, and how can I prepare? Anger. Instead of exploding, ask, what boundary do I need to set more clearly? Sadness. Instead of sinking, ask, what is this loss teaching me about what I value most? Joy. Instead of rushing past it, ask, How can I create more of this in my life? When you see emotions not as enemies but as teachers, your behavior becomes more intentional, your relationships more authentic, and your decisions more aligned with your true self. The social side of emotions. Emotions are not just private experiences. They are social signals. The way we laugh, cry, smile, or frown communicates volumes before we even speak. For example, a smile can disarm tension in a room. A sigh can show fatigue without a word. A tear can invite empathy instantly. When you learn to notice these cues in others, you become socially intelligent, able to respond in ways that deepen trust and connection. That's why mastering emotions is not just about self-control. It's about social awareness. It's about knowing that your tone of voice, your facial expression, and even your silence carry meaning. Key takeaways for you. Emotions are compasses. They guide behavior by pointing toward needs, values, and desires. Every emotion has a message. Anger signals boundaries, sadness signals loss, joy signals fulfillment, fear signals caution. Logic alone isn't enough. Emotions often determine what choices we actually make. Reading emotions builds social intelligence. Your ability to understand and respond to emotions, both yours and others, is the foundation of influence and connection. Emotional mastery means listening, not suppressing. By asking the right questions, emotions become tools for growth. As you continue listening to this audiobook, I want you to start paying closer attention to your emotional compass. The next time you feel something strongly, whether joy, fear, anger, or sadness, pause and ask, what is this emotion really trying to tell me? And before we move on, if this chapter has sparked something in you, if it has made you reflect on your own emotional compass, I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the rest of the audiobook. Like this video if you found value, and drop a comment sharing one emotion that often guides your own behavior. Because when we share our stories, we learn not just from books, but from each other. Now, let's continue this journey. In the next chapter, we'll explore personality and individual differences, why no two people are exactly alike, and how understanding this can change the way you connect with the world. Chapter 5: Personality and Individual Differences. Have you ever wondered why two people can face the exact same situation and respond completely differently? Imagine this. Two friends are invited to a party. One of them walks in, starts talking to everyone, and seems energized by the crowd. The other one stays close to the corner, quietly observing, and prefers to talk with just one or two people. Same event, completely different reactions. Why does this happen? The answer lies in personality and individual differences. Personality is like the unique fingerprint of your mind. It shapes how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. It's why some people thrive in high-energy social environments while others find peace in quiet solitude. It's why one person makes decisions quickly and confidently, while another prefers to think carefully before acting. In this chapter, we are going to explore what personality really is, how it develops, and why understanding it is key to mastering human behavior and social intelligence. What is personality? Personality is the set of characteristics that makes you you. It includes patterns of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that are consistent over time. While we can all adapt depending on the situation, there are certain traits that remain stable and predictable. One of the most widely accepted frameworks to understand personality is the Big Five personality traits, sometimes called the Ocean Model. Openness to experience, how curious and imaginative you are. Conscientiousness, how organized, responsible, and reliable you are. Extroversion, how outgoing and energetic you are in social settings. Agreeableness, how compassionate, cooperative, and kind you are. Neuroticism, how sensitive you are to stress and negative emotions. Think about it. A highly conscientious person might always plan ahead, keep their workspace neat, and stick to deadlines. On the other hand, someone lower in conscientiousness may be more spontaneous, less structured, and comfortable with uncertainty. Neither is better than the other. They are just different ways of experiencing life. Nature, nurture, and personality. Where does personality come from? Is it something we are born with, or something we learn along the way? The answer is both. Studies in psychology show that personality is influenced by genetics as well as environment. For example, identical twins who grew up in different homes often show surprising similarities in personality, suggesting a strong biological foundation. At the same time, experiences like family upbringing, culture, friendships, and even education shape the way those traits are expressed. Think of it like this: genetics provides the ingredients, but life experiences decide the recipe. Why personality matters in daily life. Understanding personality differences is one of the most practical tools for improving your relationships and social intelligence. For example, let's say you're working on a team project. One teammate may want to brainstorm freely, throwing out creative ideas without worrying about rules. Another teammate may prefer a structured plan, with clear steps and deadlines. If you don't recognize these personality differences, frustration is inevitable. But once you see it for what it is, different personality traits at play, you can adjust your approach. Instead of saying, "Why are you so rigid?" or "Why are you so messy?" you begin to say, "This is just how their personality works. How can we balance both styles?" This understanding not only reduces conflict, but also helps you connect more deeply with others. A powerful insight from literature. In his book, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain, the author makes a profound point. There's zero correlation between being the best talker and having the best ideas. This quote reminds us that personality traits like introversion or extroversion are not indicators of intelligence or value. An introvert may not speak as much in a group, but that silence can hold deep insights. An extrovert may energize the room with their words, but that doesn't always mean they have the strongest solutions. Both personalities bring unique strengths. Social intelligence means recognizing and appreciating these differences instead of trying to make everyone behave the same way. Adapting to personality differences. So, how do we apply this knowledge in real life? Here are 3 practical steps. Know yourself first. Spend time reflecting on your own personality. Are you naturally more extroverted or introverted? Are you highly conscientious or more spontaneous? Understanding yourself helps you notice when you're acting out of alignment with your strengths. Observe without judgment. When you interact with others, resist the urge to label them as too much or not enough. Instead, ask yourself, what personality trait is driving this behavior? This shift in perspective reduces conflict and builds empathy. Adapt your style. Social intelligence is not about changing who you are. It's about being flexible enough to connect with different types of people. If you're extroverted, try giving introverts the space to process before answering. If you're introverted, challenge yourself to share your thoughts even if it feels uncomfortable. Personality in action. Everyday examples. Think about customer service. A highly agreeable personality might naturally go out of their way to help customers, showing warmth and patience. A highly conscientious personality might focus on accuracy, making sure every detail of the order is correct. Both are valuable in their own way. Or consider friendships. Some people love spontaneous adventures, while others prefer calm and planned routines. Understanding these differences can save you from unnecessary frustration. Instead of saying, "You never want to go out," you start saying, "I get that you recharge differently. Let's find a balance." Key takeaways for you. Personality is the unique fingerprint of your mind. It shapes your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The big 5 traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, are a helpful way to understand differences. Personality comes from both nature, genetics, and nurture, life experiences. Recognizing personality differences in others helps reduce conflict and build stronger connections. Social intelligence means adapting your style, not changing who you are, but learning how to connect better with others. As we wrap up this chapter, remember this. Every person you meet is carrying their own unique blend of traits. The more you understand personality, the better you can connect, influence, and grow. When you start to see differences not as problems, but as possibilities, you unlock the true power of social intelligence. Chapter 6: Cognitive Biases and Mental Shortcuts. Have you ever made a quick decision and later thought, "Why did I do that? That wasn't even logical." Or maybe you judged someone in the first few seconds of meeting them, only to discover later that your first impression was completely wrong. If you can relate, then you've already experienced what psychologists call cognitive biases, the mental shortcuts our brains use every single day. Here's the truth. Our brains are wired to save energy. We process thousands of thoughts, images, and signals every second. If we had to carefully analyze each one, we'd never get anything done. So instead, our brains rely on shortcuts, little rules of thumb that help us make decisions quickly. These shortcuts are useful most of the time, but they can also trick us, leading us to poor choices, unfair judgments, and blind spots we don't even notice. One of my favorite descriptions of this comes from Daniel Kahneman's famous book Thinking, Fast and Slow. Kahneman explains that the human brain has two systems. System 1 is fast, automatic, and emotional. System 2 is slower, deliberate, and logical. Most of the time, we rely on System 1 because it saves us energy. But the catch is, System 1 often falls into traps, biases that distort our reality. Let's break this down with a few examples you might recognize in your own life. The confirmation bias. Imagine scrolling through the news or social media. You come across an article that agrees with what you already believe. Immediately, you nod and think, "Yes, this is true." Then you see another article that challenges your belief, and without much thought, you dismiss it. That's confirmation bias at work. The tendency to favor information that supports what we already think and ignore or downplay information that contradicts it. The problem? Confirmation bias can trap us in echo chambers, limiting our growth and making us blind to other perspectives. It can affect our relationships, our learning, and even how we vote or make financial decisions. The anchoring effect. Have you ever gone shopping, seen a product with a ridiculously high original price, but then it's marked down with a special offer, and suddenly it feels like a great deal? That's the anchoring effect. Our brains tend to rely heavily on the first piece of information we encounter, the anchor, even if it's arbitrary. The same happens in negotiations. The first number put on the table often shapes the whole discussion, even if it's not fair. Once you're aware of anchoring, you start to see how often it influences your decisions without you even realizing it. The halo effect. Picture this. You meet someone who is really attractive or well-dressed. Immediately, without knowing anything else about them, you assume they must also be smart, kind, or successful. That's the halo effect. When one positive trait creates a glow that influences how we see everything else about a person. Of course, the reverse can happen too. If someone makes a bad first impression, we might unfairly assume they're lazy or untrustworthy, even if that's not true. The availability heuristic. Another powerful bias is the availability heuristic. This happens when we judge how likely something is based on how easily we can remember examples of it. For example, if you hear about a plane crash on the news, you might suddenly feel that flying is extremely dangerous, even though statistically, it's much safer than driving. The vivid memory of the crash makes it feel more common than it really is. This bias explains why we sometimes overestimate risks or make choices based on fear rather than facts. The overconfidence bias. Let me ask you this. How many times have you thought, "I know what I'm doing, I won't make that mistake," only to make that exact mistake? That's the overconfidence bias, the tendency to believe we're more capable, knowledgeable, or accurate than we actually are. It shows up in exams, business decisions, investments, and even driving. Most people think they're better than average drivers, but logically, that can't be true. Overconfidence can push us into risky situations because we underestimate the possibility of failure. Why these biases matter? Now you might be wondering, okay, But why does this matter for my personal growth or social intelligence? Here's why. If you don't understand your own mental shortcuts, they will control you without your awareness. You'll judge people unfairly, make decisions based on false assumptions, and even limit your own potential. But when you recognize these biases, you take back control. You learn to slow down, question your instincts, and look at situations more clearly. As Kahneman wrote in Thinking, Fast and Slow, the idea that the future is unpredictable is undermined every day by the ease with which the past is explained. This means we often think we knew it all along, because our brains rewrite memories to make the world seem more predictable than it really is. Being aware of this makes us more humble, open, and willing to learn. Key takeaways for you. Cognitive biases are shortcuts our brains use to save energy, but they often distort reality. Common biases include confirmation bias, anchoring, halo effect, availability heuristic, and overconfidence. Awareness is power. Once you see the bias, you can pause, challenge it, and make a better choice. Social intelligence grows when you understand not just your own biases, but also how they shape other people's behavior. Practical steps you can try today. Next time you read something online, ask yourself, am I agreeing because it's true or because it matches what I already believe? When making a decision, write down the first number or idea that came to mind. Then ask, am I being anchored by this starting point? Before judging someone, pause and ask, am I letting one trait overshadow the rest of who they are? Challenge your fears with data. Don't let rare events that you've seen in the news distort your sense of reality. Finally, remind yourself, being confident is good, but overconfidence can blind you. Stay curious and humble. The more you practice spotting these biases, the sharper your mind becomes. And the sharper your mind becomes, the stronger your social intelligence grows. Because you'll not only understand yourself better, but you'll also see more clearly what shapes other people's behavior. So, as we move into the next chapter, keep asking yourself this powerful question. Am I seeing reality, or am I seeing a shortcut my brain has created? If you found value in this chapter, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below sharing which bias you recognized most in your own life. Your interaction helps us grow and bring you even more life-changing content. Now, let's continue this journey and go even deeper into understanding human behavior. Chapter 7: Social Dynamics and Group Behavior. Have you ever noticed how people can act completely differently when they are in a group compared to when they are alone? Maybe you've seen someone at work stay quiet during a meeting, even though they had a strong opinion, simply because the majority seemed to disagree. Or maybe you've witnessed a crowd cheer for something they didn't even fully understand, simply because everyone else was doing it. This is the power of social dynamics and group behavior. It's the invisible force that shapes how we act when we are surrounded by others. It influences the way we speak, the decisions we make, and even the way we see ourselves. Sometimes it brings out the best in us: teamwork, unity, belonging. Other times, it can lead us into poor decisions, unnecessary conflict, or blind conformity. In this chapter, we're going to explore these forces so that you can recognize them in your own life and learn how to navigate them wisely. The pull of the crowd. Let's start with something simple. Imagine walking down the street and suddenly seeing a group of people gathered around, looking up at the sky. What's the first thing you're likely to do? You'll probably stop and look up too, even without knowing what's going on. This is called social proof, the tendency to assume that if everyone else is doing something, it must be worth doing. Psychologist Robert Cialdini, in his famous book Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, explains that humans are wired to take cues from others, especially in uncertain situations. If we're unsure about what to do, we look to the group for guidance. It's efficient, it saves us time and energy. But it also makes us vulnerable to following the crowd blindly, even when the crowd might be wrong. Conformity, the pressure to fit in. One of the most famous studies on group behavior comes from psychologist Solomon Asch. In his experiment, participants were asked to match line lengths on a card. The task was simple and obvious. But when placed in a group where everyone else deliberately gave the wrong answer, many participants also chose the wrong answer, even though they knew it was incorrect. Why? Because the pressure to conform is powerful. We fear standing out. We fear rejection. Sometimes we'd rather be wrong with the group than right by ourselves. Think about your own life. Have you ever agreed with a group decision you didn't actually support? Maybe you went along with friends, colleagues, or family just to keep the peace. That's social dynamics at work. Group identity and belonging. Humans are social creatures. We crave belonging. We form groups around culture, religion, profession, hobbies, and even sports teams. These groups give us identity, security, and pride. But they can also create division, an us versus them mindset. When we belong to a group, we tend to favor people inside the group and sometimes judge those outside of it. Psychologists call this in-group bias. It can make us loyal, but it can also blind us to fairness and empathy. This is why conflicts between groups often run so deep. Not just because of the issue itself, but because our sense of identity feels threatened. The role of leaders in group behavior. Groups often look to leaders to guide them. A strong leader can inspire cooperation, innovation, and unity. But a poor or manipulative leader can create fear, division, and destructive choices. Have you ever been in a team where everyone felt energized, motivated, and eager to contribute? Chances are, the leader created an environment of trust and respect. On the other hand, have you experienced a situation where people stayed silent, avoided risks, and just did the bare minimum? That usually comes from a lack of supportive leadership. Leadership is one of the most powerful forces shaping group behavior. That's why understanding it is key to mastering social dynamics. Mob mentality and de-individuation. Sometimes group behavior can go to extremes. People in large crowds can lose their sense of individual responsibility. They act in ways they never would alone, shouting, pushing, or even engaging in violence. Psychologists call this de-individuation, when personal identity fades into the group identity. You've probably seen examples of this during heated sporting events or online in large comment sections where negativity spreads quickly. The group gives people a sense of anonymity, which lowers accountability and increases impulsive actions. The key is to stay aware. When you feel swept up in the emotions of a group, pause and ask yourself, am I making this choice consciously, or am I just being carried by the crowd? Healthy group dynamics. It's important to note that groups aren't always negative. In fact, some of the most incredible achievements in human history have come from effective group collaboration. Teams that trust each other, value diverse opinions, and communicate openly can achieve far more than individuals working alone. Healthy group dynamics happen when there's a balance between individuality and unity, when people feel safe to express themselves, but also committed to a shared purpose. Key takeaways for you. Recognize the power of social proof. Just because everyone is doing it doesn't mean it's right. Pause before following the crowd. Understand conformity pressures. People often go along with the majority even when they disagree. Don't be afraid to stand firm when needed. Be aware of in-group bias. It's natural to favor our people. But try to remain fair and open-minded toward others. Value leadership in groups. Great leaders inspire unity, while poor leaders create fear and division. Choose your influences wisely. Guard against mob mentality. Don't lose your individuality in a crowd. Stay conscious of your choices. Aim for healthy group dynamics. Encourage open communication, respect diversity, and balance belonging with individuality. Social dynamics and group behavior shape so much of our daily lives. How we work, how we connect, and how we see ourselves. The more you understand these forces, the more control you'll have over your own choices, and the better equipped you'll be to lead, influence, and thrive within groups. So next time you're in a meeting, a family gathering, or even scrolling through online discussions, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, am I thinking for myself, or am I being carried by the group? That simple question can make all the difference. Let's move forward together, because the journey to mastery is just beginning. Chapter 8. Building Self-Awareness. Have you ever had a moment where you reacted to something and later thought to yourself, why did I do that? Maybe you snapped at a friend when they asked an innocent question. Or perhaps you found yourself procrastinating on something important, and you didn't really understand why. These moments are common, and they point to one of the greatest challenges we all face: the lack of self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to look inward, to recognize your emotions, your thoughts, and your behaviors as they are happening. It is the foundation of personal growth and the gateway to mastering social intelligence. Without self-awareness, we are like passengers on a bus with no idea where it's going. But with self-awareness, we become the drivers. We may not control every circumstance in life, but we gain the power to choose our responses. A psychologist and author, Daniel Goleman, who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence, wrote in his book Emotional Intelligence, "Why it can matter more than IQ that self-awareness, recognizing a feeling as it happens, is the keystone of emotional intelligence." Think about that for a second. It's not just about knowing how to manage others or even manage situations, but about first being able to notice and name what is happening inside yourself. Let me give you an example. Imagine a manager who feels frustrated because their team missed a deadline. Without self-awareness, the frustration might immediately turn into anger, leading the manager to shout or criticize unfairly. This, of course, damages trust and morale. But with self-awareness, the manager notices, I am frustrated. I feel under pressure. I want to react harshly, but maybe I should pause and think before I speak. That pause, born from self-awareness, creates the possibility of a better outcome. Instead of anger, the manager may calmly explain the importance of deadlines and work with the team to find solutions. This is the power of self-awareness. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about recognizing them and choosing a better way forward. Now, you might ask, how do we build self-awareness in practical terms? Step 1. Pay attention to your emotions. The first step is to tune into your emotions throughout the day. Instead of ignoring them or letting them control you, pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? You don't need complicated labels. Just simple ones like happy, sad, anxious, calm, excited, frustrated. When you name your emotions, you create distance between you and the emotion. It's no longer running the show, you are observing it. Step 2. Notice your triggers. All of us have triggers, things that set us off. It could be criticism, being ignored, or feeling disrespected. If you pay attention, you'll start noticing patterns. Maybe you realize that you get defensive whenever someone gives you feedback. Or maybe you notice you get anxious in large groups. Awareness of your triggers helps you prepare. Instead of being surprised by your reactions, you begin to expect them and handle them with more calmness. Step 3. Reflect daily. One of the simplest tools for building self-awareness is reflection. At the end of the day, take 5 minutes to ask yourself, what went well today? What didn't go so well? How did I react? Why did I react that way? You can write your answers in a journal, record them in your phone, or even just think through them in silence. Over time, these small reflections build a clearer picture of who you are and how you behave. Step 4. Ask for feedback. Another powerful way to build self-awareness is to seek honest feedback from others. Sometimes we are blind to our own patterns. A trusted friend or colleague can point out things we don't see. For example, someone might say, "You often cut people off when they're speaking." At first, this may be uncomfortable to hear. But feedback is a gift. It shows us the gap between how we see ourselves and how others see us. Step 5. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness simply means paying attention to the present moment. It can be as simple as focusing on your breath, noticing the sounds around you, or feeling the weight of your feet on the ground. This practice strengthens self-awareness by training your mind to slow down and observe instead of automatically reacting. Let's return to another real-world example. Imagine 2 people stuck in heavy traffic. The first person reacts with anger, honking, yelling, and fuming. The second person feels the same frustration but notices it. I'm feeling impatient. I can't change the traffic. I can use this time to listen to something educational. Both people face the same situation, but the self-aware person chooses a response that reduces stress and adds value to their time. This is why self-awareness is so powerful. It changes the way you experience life. Instead of being a prisoner of emotions, you become their observer and guide. Now, you might be wondering, does self-awareness really make that big of a difference in success and relationships? The answer is absolutely yes. Research shows that people with high self-awareness are better leaders, better partners, and even more fulfilled individuals. They are less likely to be blindsided by their own emotions, and they are more likely to connect with others authentically. There is a popular saying in personal development: you cannot change what you are not aware of. This means that awareness is the very first step toward growth. If you want to break bad habits, build better relationships, or succeed in your career, it all begins with self-awareness. So, here's the key question for you as the listener. How self-aware are you right now? Do you notice your emotions as they arise? Do you understand your triggers? Do you reflect on your actions daily? The good news is, no matter where you start, you can grow in self-awareness. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you pause to notice yourself instead of reacting blindly, you strengthen this vital skill. Key takeaways for you. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence and social mastery. It allows you to recognize emotions, understand triggers, and choose better responses. Tools like journaling, mindfulness, reflection, and feedback accelerate self-awareness. Without self-awareness, you are driven by impulses. With it, you gain the power to grow and connect authentically. Before you move to the next chapter, I want to invite you to reflect. Take a moment today to pause and simply notice one emotion you feel and why you feel it. That small act is the beginning of mastery. That is the power of self-awareness. And in the chapters ahead, we will build on this foundation, because once you truly know yourself, you gain the ability to understand and influence the world around you. Chapter 9: Emotional Intelligence in Action. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew exactly what you wanted to say, but in the heat of the moment, your emotions took over? Maybe you raised your voice at a loved one, or froze up during an important meeting, or even said something you later regretted. We've all been there. In those moments, intelligence alone doesn't save us. What we need is something deeper: emotional intelligence. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, in his famous book Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, explained that success in life is not just about how smart you are in terms of traditional intelligence, but how well you can recognize, manage, and use emotions, both yours and others. So let's break it down together, step by step. What is emotional intelligence in action? Emotional intelligence, or EQ, isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending to be calm all the time. It's about being aware of your feelings, understanding why they show up, and then choosing how to respond instead of simply reacting. Think of emotions like waves in the ocean. You can't stop the waves from coming, but you can learn to surf them instead of being drowned. When EQ is in action, it looks like pausing before reacting when you're angry, reading the mood in a room and adjusting your tone, comforting a friend without needing to fix their problem, staying calm under pressure while others panic. The 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. Let's explore the 4 pillars Goleman identified and see how they show up in real life. 1. Self-awareness. This is knowing your own emotions in real time. For example, you notice your heart racing and your chest tightening during an argument. Instead of blaming the other person, you recognize, I am feeling defensive. Self-awareness is the first step to self-control. 2. Self-regulation. This is choosing your response. Imagine a coworker criticizes your work unfairly. Instead of snapping back, you breathe, listen, and respond calmly. That's self-regulation, directing your emotions, not letting them direct you. 3. Empathy. This is feeling what others feel. When a friend seems distant, instead of assuming they're ignoring you, you think, maybe they're going through something. You reach out gently. Empathy builds trust. 4. Social skills. This is using emotional awareness to build better connections. It could be resolving conflicts, inspiring a team, or simply listening without interrupting. These are the skills that turn knowledge into influence. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two managers in the same office. Both are intelligent, both have strong qualifications. One loses his temper when deadlines are missed. He yells, his team feels demoralized, and eventually, they stop sharing problems with him. The other manager also feels stress, but instead of lashing out, she gathers her team, listens to their challenges, and works on solutions together. Her team feels valued and motivated. Who do you think will succeed in the long run? Not the one with the sharpest IQ, but the one with the strongest EQ. Or think of a family setting. A parent comes home tired after a long day. The children are noisy, running around, and the parent is about to shout. But then they pause, recognize their own exhaustion, and remind themselves, they're just being kids. My tiredness is not their fault. With that awareness, they approach with patience. The result? A stronger bond instead of unnecessary conflict. Why emotional intelligence matters more than ever. In today's fast-paced, highly connected world, emotional intelligence is no longer optional. It's essential. Technology can give us instant answers, but it can't teach us how to respond with empathy. Automation can perform tasks, but it can't build trust or resolve human conflict. EQ is what makes leaders effective, partners understanding, and friendships lasting. It's the secret ingredient behind resilience, influence, and deep connection. How to practice emotional intelligence daily. Let's make it practical. Here are simple steps you can start using today. Pause before reacting. When you feel a strong emotion, count to 3 before you respond. This small pause can prevent regret later. Name your emotions. Instead of just saying, "I'm upset," try, "I feel disappointed because my expectations weren't met." Naming emotions gives you power over them. Listen with curiosity. When someone is speaking, don't just plan your reply, really listen. Ask yourself, what is this person truly feeling? Practice empathy. Next time someone is upset, resist the urge to fix it right away. Instead, say, "I can see this is hard for you." Sometimes people need understanding, not solutions. Reflect daily. At the end of the day, ask yourself, when did I manage my emotions well? When did I let them control me? This builds self-awareness over time. As Viktor Frankl wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is the essence of emotional intelligence. That tiny space, the pause between what happens to us and how we react, determines the quality of our relationships, our careers, and even our inner peace. Key takeaways for you. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, both yours and others. It is built on 4 pillars: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills. EQ in action looks like pausing before reacting, listening deeply, and responding with empathy. The small daily habits of naming your emotions, pausing, and reflecting can transform your emotional life. Remember, success in life is not only about intelligence, it's about emotional wisdom. If this chapter gave you insight, imagine what practicing it daily could do for your life. So here's what I want you to do. Starting today, pick one moment where you usually react quickly and instead pause. Notice the change it creates. And if you're finding value in this audiobook, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment below sharing how you practice emotional intelligence in your daily life. Your engagement helps us reach more people who are also on a journey of growth and mastery. Let's keep growing together, because the more emotionally intelligent we become, the more powerful, peaceful, and connected our lives will be. Chapter 10. Mastering Empathy and Perspective Taking. Let me start with a simple question. Have you ever been in a conversation where you felt the other person just didn't get you? You were trying to explain how you felt, but instead of listening, they rushed to give advice, dismiss your feelings, or even turn the conversation back to themselves. Now flip that experience. Have you ever had a moment where someone looked you in the eye, listened without judgment, and made you feel deeply understood, without even saying much? That feeling is powerful. It's the power of empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. But it's more than just feeling sorry for someone. It is about stepping into their shoes, seeing the world through their eyes, and connecting with their reality. Perspective taking is the practice that makes this possible. It's not just about feeling what others feel, but also about thinking from their point of view. The psychologist Daniel Goleman, in his classic book Emotional Intelligence, 1995, said, "Empathy represents the foundation skill for all social competencies important for work. Expertise in building and retaining talent, being a team player, customer service, and managing diversity." This means that empathy is not only a soft skill, it is a survival skill in relationships, business, and leadership. Why empathy matters. Think of a workplace where a manager doesn't understand their team's struggles. The employees feel ignored, morale drops, and productivity suffers. Now think of another workplace where the manager takes time to listen, understands their challenges, and supports them with kindness. Which one do you think will thrive? Or picture a family conflict where two people are arguing endlessly because each one only sees their own side. The fight drags on, the bond weakens. But the moment one of them pauses and says, "I may not agree, but I can see how this must feel for you," everything shifts. Empathy doesn't erase conflict, but it softens the ground so resolution becomes possible. Without empathy, relationships become mechanical and cold. With empathy, they become warm, resilient, and meaningful. The levels of empathy. Empathy isn't a single skill. It exists in layers. Cognitive empathy. The ability to understand what someone else is thinking. For example, recognizing that your friend, who just failed an exam, is probably feeling disappointed. Emotional empathy. Actually feeling what the other person feels. When you see someone cry, and you feel a lump in your throat, that's emotional empathy. Compassionate empathy, going beyond feeling to taking action. It's not just knowing or feeling, but doing something to help. For example, noticing a colleague is stressed and offering to lighten their load. Perspective taking ties all of this together. It means deliberately asking yourself, if I were in their situation, what would I think, feel, or need? In friendships, imagine your best friend cancels plans at the last minute. Without empathy, you might jump to the conclusion that they don't value your time. With empathy, you pause and think, maybe they're overwhelmed, tired, or struggling with something they haven't shared. In work environments, suppose a coworker seems distant in a meeting. Instead of assuming they are lazy or uninterested, perspective taking reminds you that they might be dealing with personal stress. In relationships, think of a partner who is upset that you forgot something small, like an anniversary date. It may not be a big deal to you, but from their perspective, it symbolizes love and care. Empathy helps you see beyond the act into the deeper meaning. In every one of these cases, empathy is not about agreeing with the other person. It's about understanding their viewpoint. That difference changes everything. How to cultivate empathy. Listen to understand, not to reply. Most of us listen while preparing our next response. Instead, slow down. Listen with the intent to understand. Let the other person finish their thoughts before you speak. Ask curious questions. Instead of making assumptions, ask, "Can you tell me more about how you're feeling?" Curiosity opens doors. Observe nonverbal cues. People don't always say how they feel. Pay attention to tone, body language, and facial expressions. Practice perspective taking daily. When someone frustrates you, pause and ask, what could be happening in their world right now that I can't see? Read books and stories. Immersing yourself in stories, novels, and biographies exposes you to different lives and perspectives. Research has shown that reading fiction can actually improve empathy because it forces you to step into the shoes of diverse characters. The American author Harper Lee once wrote in To Kill a Mockingbird, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it." This timeless wisdom captures the very essence of empathy and perspective taking. It reminds us that people are more than what they show on the surface. Key takeaways for you. Empathy is a skill, not just a feeling. You can strengthen it with practice. There are 3 levels of empathy: cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. Perspective taking is the bridge that helps you move beyond judgment to understanding. Empathy transforms relationships. It helps you resolve conflict, build trust, and connect deeply. You don't need to agree with someone to empathize with them. Understanding is enough to create connection. Now that you've learned about mastering empathy and perspective taking, start practicing today. The next time you speak with someone, pause, listen more deeply, and ask yourself, what is life like through their eyes? Chapter 11. Communication that connects. Have you ever had a conversation where you walked away feeling completely misunderstood? Maybe you were trying to explain how you felt, but the other person just didn't seem to get it. Or perhaps you listened to someone talk, but you couldn't quite figure out what they were really trying to say. These moments are frustrating, and they happen to all of us. The truth is, communication is more than just words. It's the bridge between our inner world and the world of others. And when that bridge is weak or broken, we lose connection. But when that bridge is strong, when we learn to communicate in a way that truly connects, relationships flourish, trust grows, and misunderstandings turn into opportunities for deeper understanding. As George Bernard Shaw once said in his book The Wit and Wisdom of George Bernard Shaw, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Think about that for a moment. So often we believe we have communicated simply because we have spoken. But speaking and truly connecting are not the same. In this chapter, we are going to explore what it really means to communicate in a way that connects, heart to heart, not just mouth to ear. The layers of communication. Most people think communication is only about words. But words make up only a small part of the message. Research in psychology shows that tone of voice, body language, and even silence carry more weight than the actual words spoken. Imagine someone saying, "I'm fine." Those 2 words could mean so many different things. If said with a smile and relaxed posture, they might truly mean the person is fine. But if said with a tense face, crossed arms, and a sigh, "I'm fine" might actually mean, "I'm not fine at all." This shows us something powerful. To connect with others, we must learn to listen not just to the words, but to the emotions, the body language, and the unspoken signals behind them. The art of listening to connect. One of the most overlooked skills in communication is listening. Not listening to reply, but listening to understand. Have you ever spoken to someone who interrupted you before you finished? Or someone who nodded politely, but you could tell their mind was elsewhere? That's not true listening. And when people feel unheard, they shut down. But when you lean in, keep eye contact, and genuinely try to understand the other person's perspective, something magical happens. They feel valued. And feeling valued is at the heart of human connection. Think about the conversations in your own life where someone gave you their full attention. Didn't you walk away feeling lighter, more respected, more connected? The power of empathy in words. Communication that connects goes beyond facts and logic. It touches emotions. Empathy is the ability to step into someone else's shoes and feel what they feel. When you communicate with empathy, you don't just give answers, you give understanding. For example, if a friend says, "I've had such a stressful day," there are many ways you could respond. You could say, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." But that dismisses their feelings. Instead, you might say, "That sounds really tough. Want to talk about it?" That small shift shows empathy. It acknowledges the emotion behind the words. When people feel understood, they open up. And that deepens the connection. Clarity and simplicity. Another key to connecting communication is clarity. Many times, miscommunication happens not because people don't care, but because the message was not clear. Simple, straightforward language is powerful. Overcomplicating things, using jargon, or speaking in circles only confuses the listener. Think of a leader giving instructions to a team. If the message is vague, "Do it better," people will feel lost. But if the leader says, "Here's what I need, step 1, step 2, and step 3, the message is clear. Clarity builds confidence. Authenticity, speaking from the heart. Have you ever met someone who always says the right thing but feels insincere? Words without authenticity rarely connect. To truly connect, you must speak from a place of honesty. That doesn't mean being harsh or blunt. It means aligning your words with your true thoughts and feelings. People can sense when you're being real. And authenticity builds trust faster than polished words ever could. Examples of connecting communication. A parent listening patiently to their child instead of dismissing their worries. A leader acknowledging the effort of their team before giving constructive feedback. A friend offering empathy instead of quick solutions. A couple choosing calm honesty over heated arguments. These examples are universal. They show that no matter where we are in the world, human beings connect best when they feel heard, understood, and respected. Key takeaways for you. Words are only part of the message. Tone, body language, and emotions speak louder. Listen to understand, not just to reply. Genuine attention creates trust. Empathy deepens connection. Acknowledge feelings before offering solutions. Clarity is kindness. Keep your message simple and easy to understand. Authenticity builds trust. Speak honestly from the heart, not just to impress. As you move forward, I encourage you to reflect on your own conversations. This week, practice listening more than you speak. Notice the body language of those around you. And before responding, pause to ask yourself, am I truly connecting, or am I just exchanging words? Remember, communication that connects has the power to transform your relationships, build trust, and open doors to opportunities you never imagined. Before we move to the next chapter, I have a small request. If you're enjoying this audiobook and finding value in it, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, what was your biggest communication breakthrough, or what challenge do you still face in conversations? Your story might inspire someone else. Your support helps us reach more people who want to grow, just like you. And trust me, the best is yet to come. Chapter 12. Navigating conflict and difficult people. Have you ever had someone in your life who just seems impossible to deal with? Maybe it's a coworker who always finds fault, a friend who takes everything the wrong way, or even a family member who knows exactly how to push your buttons. If you're honest, you've probably had moments where you thought, why does it feel like this person enjoys making things difficult? The truth is, difficult people exist everywhere. No matter how kind, calm, or patient you are, you can't escape conflict forever. But here's the good news. Conflict doesn't have to destroy relationships or drain your peace of mind. When handled with skill, conflict can actually become an opportunity for deeper understanding, stronger connections, and even personal growth. Let's start with this. Conflict itself is not the enemy. It's how we handle it that makes all the difference. Why conflict happens? At its root, conflict usually comes from unmet needs, miscommunication, or differences in values. Think about it. When two people disagree, it's rarely about the surface issue. It's often about something deeper, feeling unheard, feeling disrespected, or feeling like their needs don't matter. For example, picture two coworkers arguing about deadlines. On the surface, it's about when a task should be completed. But beneath the surface, one may feel overwhelmed and unsupported, while the other may feel ignored and disrespected. The conflict isn't really about the deadline. It's about recognition and respect. This is why understanding psychology matters. Once you see the need behind the argument, you can respond with wisdom instead of anger. The first step, managing yourself. When you're in conflict, the most important person to manage is not the other. It's you. Because if you lose control of your emotions, you hand over your power. As Stephen R. Covey wrote in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That means no matter how difficult the person is, you have the ability to pause, breathe, and choose how you respond. This one habit can turn an explosive moment into a calm, constructive conversation. Strategies for navigating conflict. Let's go step by step with strategies you can use anywhere in the world, with anyone, whether it's at work, at home, or in your community. Listen before you speak. Most conflicts get worse because people are too busy defending themselves instead of listening. Try this. Let the other person talk without interrupting. Even if you disagree, listen fully. Sometimes people stop being difficult once they feel heard. Separate the person from the problem. It's easy to label someone as toxic or impossible. But often, it's not the person that's the problem. It's the behavior or the situation. Attack the problem, not the person. For example, instead of saying, "You're always careless," you can say, "When deadlines are missed, it affects the whole team. How can we solve this together?" Stay calm under pressure. Difficult people often feed off strong reactions. If you remain calm, you take away their power. Remember, your calmness is your strength. Use assertive communication. Assertive communication means expressing your needs clearly, without aggression and without passivity. For instance, you can say, "I understand your point, but I also need to share how this affects me. Can we find a middle ground?" Know when to walk away. Sometimes the healthiest choice is to disengage. If a person refuses to respect boundaries, protect your peace. Walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. Handling different types of difficult people. Now let's break it down further. Because not all difficult people are the same. The complainer, they always find fault. The best response? Acknowledge their concern, but gently guide them toward solutions. The aggressive one, they use anger or intimidation. Stay calm, set firm boundaries, and don't mirror their aggression. The passive one, they don't speak directly, but their silence or sarcasm shows disapproval. Encourage open dialogue and reassure them that honesty is safe. The know-it-all, they always want to be right. Instead of challenging them head-on, ask curious questions. Let them explain, and then add your perspective respectfully. When you recognize the type of difficult behavior, you can choose the right strategy to deal with it. Conflict as an opportunity. It may sound strange, but conflict can actually bring people closer when it's handled well. Many strong friendships, partnerships, and teams are built not by avoiding disagreements, but by working through them with respect. Think about it. When you solve a conflict, you show the other person that you value the relationship more than your ego. And that builds trust. Key takeaways for you. Conflict is not the enemy. It's a chance to understand needs and build stronger connections. Manage yourself first. Pause, breathe, and choose your response. Listen fully before speaking. Often, people stop being difficult once they feel heard. Separate the person from the problem. Address issues, not identities. Use assertive communication, clear, calm, and respectful. Recognize the type of difficult behavior and adjust your approach. Remember, walking away is sometimes the smartest choice. So, the next time you face conflict or run into someone difficult, don't see it as a battle to win. See it as an opportunity to practice self-control, empathy, and wisdom. By doing so, you're not only solving problems, you're building mastery over yourself and your relationships. And remember, mastery of conflict is one of the pillars of social intelligence. When you learn to handle difficult people, you gain a skill that will serve you for life. Let's move on to the next chapter, where we'll dive deeper into the art of influence, persuasion, and trust building. Chapter 13. Influence, Persuasion, and Trust Building. Have you ever been in a situation where someone convinced you to do something, and afterward you thought, "Wow, I didn't even realize how persuasive they were until I had already agreed." Maybe it was a colleague who got you on board with their project, or a friend who persuaded you to join them on an adventure you never planned. Or perhaps it was a leader whose words moved you so deeply that you felt inspired to take action immediately. The truth is, influence is everywhere. From advertising that shapes our buying decisions, to leaders inspiring change, to simple everyday conversations where we try to convince someone to see our point of view. Persuasion is part of life. The real question is not whether we use influence, but whether we use it wisely, ethically, and effectively. Let's break this down. The power of influence. Influence is the ability to shape how others think, feel, or behave. It doesn't always mean control. In fact, real influence is not about forcing people. It's about guiding them in a way that feels natural, respectful, and authentic. When we influence well, people don't feel pressured. Instead, they feel understood, valued, and motivated. Think about it. Some of the most impactful figures in history didn't force people into action. They spoke to the hearts and minds of others. They built trust first, then used persuasion to inspire change. One of the best books on this subject is Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. In it, he explains 6 key principles of persuasion: reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. These principles are universal, and once you recognize them, you'll start seeing them in every interaction around you. Let's go through a few of them in simple terms. Reciprocity, the rule of give and take. Have you ever noticed that when someone does something nice for you, you almost feel an obligation to return the favor? That's reciprocity. Humans are wired to give back when we receive. For example, if a friend helps you move into your new apartment, you'll probably feel eager to help them when they need something. In persuasion, this means if you want to influence others, start by adding value. Offer genuine help, share useful information, or show kindness. People naturally want to return that energy. Social proof, we follow the crowd. Now picture this. You're walking through a busy town and see 2 restaurants. One is nearly empty, and the other has a long line outside. Which one are you more likely to try? Most people would pick the busy one, even without tasting the food. Why? Because we assume if others like it, it must be good. That's social proof. We look to others to guide our decisions, especially when we are uncertain. This principle explains why testimonials, reviews, and word of mouth are so powerful. Authority, we trust expertise. Think about how you feel when you get advice from a doctor, a teacher, or a mentor. You're more likely to trust them because of their expertise. Authority builds credibility, and credibility builds trust. But here's the key: you don't need a fancy title to establish authority. Simply knowing your subject, speaking with clarity, and being consistent can make you someone others respect and listen to. Liking. People say yes to people they like. It's simple. We are more likely to be influenced by people we like. And what makes someone likable? Authenticity, kindness, shared interests, and the ability to genuinely listen. Have you noticed how much easier it is to say yes to a friend than to a stranger? That's the principle of liking at work. Trust, the foundation of influence. Now, here's the most important part. None of these principles work well unless trust is present. You can persuade people temporarily with tricks, but if they don't trust you, the influence won't last. Real influence requires building a foundation of trust. And trust is built on 3 things: honesty, consistency, and care. When people know you are honest, that you do what you say you will do, and that you genuinely care about their well-being, they will naturally open themselves to your influence. Think of someone in your life who has had the most influence on you. Chances are they weren't the loudest, the most powerful, or the most persuasive speaker. They probably influenced you because you trusted them. Everyday examples of persuasion. Let me share a simple example. Imagine you're part of a team project. You want your colleagues to support your idea. You could forcefully argue why your idea is better, but that might create resistance. Instead, you start by listening to their concerns. You acknowledge their points, and then present your idea as a way to solve those concerns. You give credit to their suggestions, you show them how it benefits the group, and you express appreciation for their input. What happens? They feel valued, and they're much more likely to agree with you. That's persuasion through trust and empathy. Another example: parents influencing their children. If a parent constantly shouts rules, children may obey for a while, but they often resist in silence. But when a parent explains the why behind the rule, sets an example, and shows love and consistency, the child naturally follows. That's influence through trust, not fear. Key takeaways for you. Influence is not control. It's guiding others in a way that respects their choice. Persuasion works best when it's ethical, when both sides benefit. Trust is the foundation of lasting influence. Without it, persuasion feels like manipulation. Apply Cialdini's principles. Give first, reciprocity. Show credibility, authority. Connect authentically, liking. And remember that people follow others, social proof. Always check your intentions. Are you influencing to serve yourself only, or to create a win-win? Influence, persuasion, and trust building are not skills reserved for salespeople, politicians, or leaders. They are life skills for everyone, whether you're leading a team, raising a family, building friendships, or simply trying to become a better communicator. When you master them, doors open. People listen, opportunities grow, and relationships deepen. So, as you go about your day, start noticing these principles in action. Observe how others influence you. Reflect on how you influence others. And remember, the most powerful influence is not in what you take from people, but in what you give to them. If this chapter has given you insights that you can apply in your own life, I invite you to stay with me on this journey. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, what area of your life are you ready to apply psychology to first? Chapter 14. Applying Psychology for Self-Growth. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. How many times have you read or listened to something inspiring, only to find that within a few days, you forgot to apply it? You hear a powerful idea, it sparks motivation, but then life gets busy and nothing changes. This is one of the greatest struggles of personal growth. Knowing something is not the same as living it. And this is where psychology becomes more than just theory. It becomes a tool for transformation. Because the real power of psychology is not in understanding others only, but in using that understanding to shape our own lives, to break old patterns, and to create lasting change. The bridge between knowledge and action. Think of it this way. Psychology gives us a mirror and a map. The mirror shows us who we are, our habits, emotions, and hidden motivations. The map shows us where we can go, our potential, our growth, our ability to design a better life. But here's the catch. A mirror and a map are useless unless you take action. For example, let's say you struggle with procrastination. Psychology tells us procrastination isn't laziness. It's often an emotional response. Maybe you're avoiding a task because it feels overwhelming, or because you fear failing at it. Once you understand that, you can address the root cause instead of just blaming yourself. You can break the task into smaller pieces, reward progress, or reframe failure as learning. This is how psychology moves from theory into self-growth. Shaping habits and behavior. One of the most practical areas where psychology helps is in building and breaking habits. James Clear, in his best-selling book Atomic Habits, writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." This is a powerful truth. Many of us set goals, exercise more, eat better, manage stress, but we don't design systems that make those goals sustainable. For instance, if you want to read more books, instead of just wishing for more discipline, you can apply behavioral psychology. Place a book on your pillow so that every night you see it before sleep. Reduce friction by keeping your phone away. Link the habit to something you already do, like drinking tea in the evening. These small, practical shifts are rooted in psychology, and they slowly rewire your behavior. The beauty of this is that it's not about huge leaps. It's about consistent, small actions that compound over time. Reframing negative thinking. Another way psychology fuels self-growth is through reframing. Our thoughts shape our emotions, and our emotions shape our actions. When we get stuck in negative thinking, "I'm not good enough, I always fail, they don't respect me," we limit our possibilities. Cognitive psychology teaches us to challenge these thoughts. Instead of saying, "I always fail," you can reframe it. "I failed this time, but I can learn from it and do better." This simple shift reduces the weight of failure and opens the door to growth. A worldwide example of this is seen in athletes. Many who lose a major competition don't quit. Instead, they study their mistakes, train differently, and return stronger. Their secret isn't just physical strength, it's psychological resilience. And resilience is something we can all build. Understanding emotional triggers. Self-growth also means managing emotions. Think about the last time you reacted strongly. Maybe you shouted, withdrew, or made a decision you later regretted. That reaction probably came from a trigger, a memory, a past experience, or an unmet need. Psychology helps us identify these triggers. When you notice a strong reaction, pause and ask, what's really happening here? Maybe it's not about the present moment, but about something deeper. By recognizing this, you give yourself power. You move from reacting blindly to responding wisely. This skill is life-changing in relationships, at work, and even in how you treat yourself. Practical application, a step-by-step guide. So, how can you begin applying psychology for self-growth today? Here's a simple 4-step framework. Awareness, notice your patterns. What do you keep repeating? What thoughts or behaviors hold you back? Understanding, dig into the why. Is it fear, unmet needs, old habits, or distorted thinking? Experimentation, try small changes. Adjust your environment, reframe your thoughts, or test new behaviors. Reflection, review what worked and what didn't. Growth is not instant, it's a cycle of learning, adjusting, and trying again. This framework works anywhere in the world for anyone. Whether it's overcoming procrastination, managing anger, building confidence, or improving relationships, psychology offers the tools. You just need to practice them. Key takeaways for you. Knowledge without action is wasted. Apply psychology by building systems, not just goals. Habits shape your life. Use psychology to design habits that align with your values. Reframe negative thoughts. They don't define you. They're simply stories your mind tells. Emotional awareness is power. Triggers lose control over you when you identify them. Growth is a cycle. Awareness, understanding, experimentation, and reflection. The famous psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The good life is a process, not a state of being. It is a direction, not a destination." This is the essence of applying psychology to self-growth. You don't wake up one day fully mastered. Instead, you grow a little every day with awareness, intention, and practice. And the beauty is, every step counts. Every time you choose reflection over reaction, growth over comfort, awareness over autopilot, you're already on the path of transformation. Your growth begins not tomorrow, but today, with small actions, consistent practice, and the decision to keep moving forward. So, let's continue together, because the journey of self-growth is one of the most rewarding paths you will ever take. Chapter 15. The Path to Social Intelligence Mastery. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever met someone who just seemed to move through life with ease? Someone who could walk into a room full of strangers and within minutes, have people smiling, listening, and connecting with them? They weren't necessarily the smartest person in the room, or the wealthiest, or even the most experienced. Yet they left an impression, a sense that they understood people. That, my friend, is the power of social intelligence in action. Social intelligence is not about manipulating others. It's not about having a perfect personality or knowing every psychological theory. Instead, it's about understanding yourself deeply, recognizing the emotions and behaviors of others, and responding with empathy, wisdom, and authenticity. And the truth is, this mastery isn't reserved for a special few. It is a skill anyone can learn, practice, and grow into. Why social intelligence matters more than ever. We live in a world that is more connected than ever before. Every day we interact with people, at work, in our communities, online, and in our personal lives. Success in these spaces doesn't come from how much knowledge we store in our heads, but from how well we relate to people. A well-known quote from Dale Carnegie's classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, puts it beautifully. When dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. This truth hasn't changed. In fact, it's even more relevant today. People are driven by emotions, values, and unspoken needs. When you understand that, when you learn to read those emotions and respond with empathy, you stand out. Not because you are extraordinary, but because you are human in the best possible way. The 3 pillars of mastery. To reach the path of social intelligence mastery, there are 3 pillars we must keep in mind. 1. Self-mastery first. You cannot master relationships with others if you haven't first built awareness of yourself. This means knowing your triggers, managing your emotions, and aligning your actions with your values. For example, think of a heated argument. Without self-awareness, you react instantly, maybe by shouting, withdrawing, or saying something you'll regret. But with self-mastery, you pause, breathe, and respond in a way that keeps respect intact. That's the difference between conflict and growth. 2. Empathy as the bridge. The second pillar is empathy, the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes. Imagine a coworker who seems distant or unmotivated. Without empathy, it's easy to label them as lazy or difficult. But empathy asks, what might this person be going through? Maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they feel unrecognized, or maybe they're carrying a personal struggle. By choosing empathy, you respond with compassion instead of judgment, and that changes the outcome of the interaction. 3. Communication with clarity and respect. Finally, mastery requires communication. Words have power. They can heal, inspire, or destroy. A leader who communicates with clarity and respect brings out the best in their team. A friend who listens without interrupting makes others feel valued. Communication isn't just about talking, it's about listening, observing, and connecting beyond the surface. To make this real, let's look at everyday situations. In the workplace, imagine 2 employees competing for a promotion. One relies solely on showcasing their technical skills. The other not only demonstrates competence but also builds strong relationships, listens to others, and supports their team. Who do you think gets noticed more? Skills matter, yes, but the ability to connect, influence, and collaborate often tips the scale. In personal relationships, think about a disagreement between 2 partners. One shuts down and refuses to listen. The other takes time to understand, validate feelings, and communicate calmly. Which relationship grows stronger over time? The difference is social intelligence. It transforms conflict into understanding. In leadership, history has shown that the most influential leaders were not always the most intelligent in the traditional sense, but they were able to rally people, inspire them, and build trust. They had the ability to see into the hearts of people and lead not just with logic, but with connection. The daily path to mastery. So how do you walk this path? The secret is in small, daily steps. Reflect daily. Ask yourself, how did I handle my emotions today? Listen actively. In your next conversation, focus more on listening than speaking. Practice empathy. When someone frustrates you, pause and imagine their perspective before reacting. Communicate with intention. Choose words that build bridges, not walls. Remember, social intelligence is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong journey of learning, practicing, and growing. Every interaction is an opportunity to sharpen your skills. Key takeaways for you. Social intelligence mastery begins with self-mastery. Manage your emotions before trying to influence others. Empathy is the heart of connection. People don't just want to be understood logically, they want to be felt. Communication is more than words. True mastery lies in listening, observing, and responding with clarity and respect. Everyday practice creates mastery. Small changes in how you relate to people can lead to life-changing results. As we come to the end of this audiobook, remember this. Mastery of human behavior and social intelligence is not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing to understand yourself better, to treat people with empathy, and to grow into someone who can navigate the complexities of life with wisdom and grace. When you walk this path, you don't just improve your career, your relationships, or your influence. You transform yourself into the kind of person others are drawn to. Someone who inspires trust, respect, and admiration. So, as you step into the world after listening to this, remember, every interaction is a chance to practice mastery. The path is not about reaching a destination, but about becoming a little better every single day. If this audiobook has given you insight, inspiration, or even a fresh way of seeing yourself and others, I'd love for you to stay connected. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button to support this work, and leave a comment sharing one lesson you'll start applying today. Your growth matters, and your story may inspire someone else who listens after you. This is the end of our journey through psychology of human behavior and social intelligence mastery. But truly, it is just the beginning of yours.